Hi, I'm Kendra Corman. If you're a coach, consultant, or marketer, you know marketing is far from a perfect science. And that's why this show is called Imperfect Marketing. Join me and my guests as we explore how to grow your business with marketing tips and, of course, lessons learned along the way. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Imperfect Marketing. I am your host. Today, I'm really excited because I am joined by Melih, who is going to be helping us talk about strategic digital marketing. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me.
On the show, Kendra. Glad we have a chance to do the show together.
So how did you get into digital marketing?
Jeez.
Do you remember?
Yeah, I do. I remember. So our company's 38 years old, right? We're a marketing agency out of the Detroit metro area, specifically in Birmingham, Michigan. If you go back to 87 when the corporation was created, we didn't really have the internet, right? We had AOL and CompuServe and those guys. It was in 94 that I started the internet group. The story goes, I was invited to Sun Microsystems offices in Southfield, Michigan. At that time, I was literally shown the internet, like with Yahoo and Netscape, using Netscape. And that was kind of the starting point of this whole process. But then the question was, how do you tie this into marketing, right? Well, the 1990s was a lot of fun, but it was like the wild, wild west of the internet. We didn't really have rules. We didn't have any boundaries, no structure, nothing going on. But that's how things started. It was back in those days.
Very cool. I love those stories because I remember Netscape. I used that. And I remember starting with retargeting when that first came out in the early 2000s. And it was crazy, right? The different ad networks.
Like ads was a big deal.
Was the only thing, right? I mean, when retargeting came out, it was like, this is so cool. So yeah, no, I totally get that. And yes, I do remember Netscape very, very well. And I'm like, how did we live without Chrome? That's what I want to know.
Considering where we were and where we are today, it's been a long ride, believe me.
We're asking Jeeves because he was the best that there was at the time. So let's talk a little bit about, you have a framework, right? 4A's framework that you talk about and leverage. Tell me a little bit about this and how this helps businesses align with real business growth.
How did I develop the concept of the 4A's of change? And it all comes down to August 2013, Google releases the Hummingbird algorithm. The Hummingbird algorithm is fairly significant in terms of how it impacts search engine optimization, how it impacts, ranking positions and so on. So at the time, it was like one more change, right? Yes, it was pretty significant, made a pretty huge dent into how people continue to use, optimize for Google. But about 90 days later, I lost a very large client. The way that the story goes is they said, hey, listen, we love you. You're doing everything good, but we're no longer playing the Google game. And so I had to take a step back and try and figure out, well, how do I get get them to understand that this is the world that we live in. This is digital marketing.
They're not playing the Google game. There's only one game.
They're not playing the game. I know, exactly. And so I had to come up with, I had two responses to that. The first response was say, listen, if you want to get off the Google train, all right, you're free to do that. But should you decide to get back on this train somewhere down the road, it'll cost you exponentially to catch up to your competitors who have not gotten off the train. I said, you got to live with this. Okay, well, once I brought the competitors into the conversation, things changed a little bit, but not necessarily to the level that I was hoping it would change in this particular situation. But at the same time, it started to raise a question in my mind about change and a company or an individual's ability to take emotion out of the picture and realize that, you need to accept change. So I came up with the 4A's. Anticipate change, which pretty much everybody says, yeah, I know that. The second one is the one that's the hardest, which is accept change. This is the emotional factor. And, when you're in business, you really need to take emotion out of the picture. You could fuss and fume all day long. about this change. It could have an impact on the investment you already made. It could have an impact on the budget moving forward. It can have a lot of different impact. Okay. It doesn't change the fact that this is going on and you have no control to go back. We're moving forward. And it doesn't change the fact that your competitors are going to continue going down this road too. So if the faster you accept change, the faster you're going to be able to stay in touch with stay competitive in the marketplace or get ahead of your competition. So fretting, fussing, and fuming for a month or 2 months, or sit there and have issues with this is not going to do you any good. Move on. All right, that's the second A. The third A is a little bit easier. It's about adapting to the change, meaning that what are the processes I have to change? What's the SEO I need to change? What's the AI I need to change? Whatever it is, right? Figure out what needs to be changed and start making those changes, plan for those changes. And the last but not least, which is the easiest one, which is adopt the changes. And it was just implement them, which is the last part. But the biggest hurdle in these 4 A's is that second one. Can the individual that we're working with and just get over the emotional aspect and just move on and just stay focused on the idea of staying competitive in the marketplace? Those are your 4 A's.
Very cool. So you talked about a different A in one of them, which was, I think, adapting to change. And that was AI. I just read an article not too long ago, actually. I think I just read it this morning of the date of our recording, that each AI search result that's like driving traffic to your website's worth 4 like Google searchers, like regular search engine clickers.
I'm willing to buy into that idea. And I think the best thing to do is just use my own experience, right? I went to Google to do some research, ran my search, went to ChatGPT, ran my search. In Google's case, I had to click on 10 different websites before I think I found what I was looking for. And I'm not saying that the results were irrelevant, but it's not what I was trying to do with my research. I went to ChatGPT, looked at my results over there. Not only did I have 5 results, but each of the 5 results, meaning the websites it was sourcing for this research, were exactly what I was looking for. I got to where I was going faster with ChatGPT than I did with a regular Google search. So to that extent, I would agree with what you're saying. Yes, one ChatGPT result, or if you get sourced and you're in this ChatGPT research, is much more valuable than what you're getting from Google. And listen, Google's not stupid. That's why they got Gemini started, right? So.
I use Perplexity a lot. I remember during the holiday season, Perplexity actually rolled out like inside Perplexity shopping and buying, where you could actually like purchase stuff without even leaving Perplexity when it did all the research, which was really cool too. So these AI systems definitely understand monetization, which is good,
no
right? Because I remember when Facebook came
about
out, right? When Facebook came out, we were like, how are they going to monetize this? Then nobody had any idea how they were going to monetize it.
No, they didn't
right?
have an idea.
And it's like, now everything starts with the monetization piece, right? Which is, I think, very good for business, especially small business, because it makes it so much more accessible. So how is that changing? You've got AI, you've got AI search, you've got regular SEO and search engine optimization, which is a little bit different at times, but becoming, I think, a little bit more the same as optimizing for AI to an extent now. Then there's the geo-targeting to make sure you're getting people that are in network and nearby. What are you seeing? How is this changing what businesses are doing?
Let's give the viewers something to chew on that I think will be helpful, that they can actually go and do something with their website. So my answer is going to be that you need to add Schema, SCHEMA, Schema code to your website. Now you're going to say, well, I've known that since 2007. Well, yeah, I know. I'm glad you know that since 2007 when Google and Microsoft and Yahoo got together and created schema.org. Yeah, we know all that. But Schema has been changing over the years, and there's even different form. And when I say different form, there's additional schema code to put into your website and into your web pages, especially like your blog pages. My suggestion is let's create a blog page, right? Once it's been published, take the URL, go to ChatGPT or Gemini or Copilot or Claude or Perplexity, whichever one you're using. Pop in the URL and ask it to provide you the schema code for that page. Copy and paste the code right into it, and you're off to the races. And what I mean off to the races, what does that mean in this case? The more schema code you have in a website or in a web page, not only is it better for the Googles of the world, for the traditional search engines, to identify what you're about and what your page is about or that specific URL is about, but it actually facilitates, especially the newer type codes that get added in, facilitate these the AI chatbots to better understand, and you have a higher probability of being sourced when somebody's searching for whatever it is that is relevant to that page or to your website. There's the other thing I would suggest. Go to your favorite chatbot and ask it to recommend companies that are in your industry, or right, whatever services or products that you provide. Take a look at the list. 9 times out of 10, you're not going to show up. Okay. So your second step is going to be, tell me, how do I get recommended? So it's going to give you a list of, hey, for your website, for your situation, these are the recommendations. Follow those recommendations, work through that list. And one of the things that you're going to find in that list is your website or your web page identified as something notable? What does that mean? Have you put out any press releases that would identify and verify who you are as a company, what services and products that you offer? So press releases are valuable to that extent. Are you in Wikipedia, for example, which also is a huge bump in something what's called being notable? Are you, as a company, are you linked or quoted in a publication, a newspaper, a magazine, industry publication, that type of thing? These are things that are notable, and they are also required in order to get sourced inside of a AI chatbot, or a response, I should say.
Very cool tips. So yes, get yourself on Wikipedia, get your company on Wikipedia, and definitely ask. Don't struggle. I have team members that are part of my agency that have names like Susie Strategy and Frank Fundraiser, and that are
I love
they're
it.
just
That's
projects. They're
good.
just custom GPTs with a set of knowledge that I believe in and trust. And then they ask me a lot of questions. I just had a 20-minute conversation with Susie today, actually, when I was working through some stuff. And I don't always take what she says verbatim, right? But it gives me some information and makes it a little bit easier for me to focus some of my ideas and get where I need to go. So that's always good. I love that. And I think it's just really important to think about that and not to be afraid to ask AI, because AI will tell you, right, exactly how you need to do it. I remember I got a phone call from a client and they're like, we're not coming up in search for the service that they were providing in the area. And I was like, because you didn't use any one of those words on the entire page. Not one of those words is on that page. I'm like, we can't do that. And then, so they went away and they're like, okay. And then they come back and they're like, can we put it in white text on a white background? And I'm like, no, you used to
Was
be
that a
able to,
1990
right?
strategy?
I was like, yes,
One
that was a
pixel
thing,
aside.
right? I was like, that was a thing in 1990. We don't do that anymore. We don't game the system, because if you try to game the system, you lose, guaranteed at
Yeah,
this point, right?
definitely.
So yeah, so I've got lots of fun stories. So yeah, so ask AI what are some great things. I was like, okay. I was like, here's all the words that you need to add to the page. This is, if you want to come up for a city, the city's got to be on that page somewhere, right? You're not going to magically show up if you're not using those words.
But the difficulty, I think, for a lot of people is they want their website to come up for, and I'm just throwing out an idea, 20 different keywords, right? Well, organically, you can't stuff one page with all of that, right? There's something called keyword density that is very important. And then, depending on who you talk to, it ranges from 1% to 3%. So If you have 800 words on that page, you can only have 1 to 3% of that with keywords, something that's relevant, right? What does this turn into? Well, if you want 20 different keywords that you want to be shown up for, you're going to need 20 different pages. You can't have one page try to get ranked for everything. It's just not possible.
Every page needs to stand for something.
All this goes back to the Hummingbird, that silly thing called Hummingbird back in 2013.
I know that was, I still remember that was a huge one. It was definitely a huge one. A lot of people took a hit on that one. So we know we need to be doing the schema. I think I talk to people all the time about podcasting. One of my previous guests actually even suggested using podcasts to do Q&A schema so that you've got question and answer format. And AI will do that with the transcript, right? So I've done that for a few clients. And so there's a lot of technology available to us. I find that sometimes we don't always use it the right way. So what are some of the mistakes that you're seeing small to mid-sized businesses make because they're going after sales, not necessarily marketing and relationships and brand building?
You bring up two very interesting points. The first one is the fact that they're so focused on sales that they miss the fact that they need the marketing foundation, right? Without the marketing foundation, you're not supporting your sales efforts. And so instead of, just throwing out an idea, instead of closing every lead that you're talking to, you're going to end up closing every fifth lead that you're talking to because your marketing foundation isn't there and you're spinning your wheels. You're better off putting a little bit of investing a little time into that marketing foundation. Like, I don't know, take a whole week and find 4 hours out of the week spread across 7 days or 5 days, just so you can, focus on that. I think that's a huge mistake that we tend to see quite often. The other one is the one that you're bringing up, just using the tools that are on the market. Well, AI is a phenomenal tool right now. It's been on the market for 2.5 years. Figure out how, and don't be afraid of it. You mentioned that earlier too, and I wholeheartedly agree with you. Don't be afraid. Just go to ChatGPT and ask it anything you want. The other day, I used it to help me build out my backup system for my MacBook Pro. Listen, I don't know all the terminal commands to go in there and type all this out, but I went to ChatGPT and I said, well, give me a backup plan for my MacBook Pro. Give me a backup plan. And it told me exactly what commands to put into terminal to set things up. The good news is all you have to do is click the copy button, dump it into terminal, paste it into terminal, and you go through this process. I mean, that's just one example of how you can use AI. But imagine what you can do as it relates to creating blog posts, right? Creating photos, images. We have a client project in which we're doing it's towels that are wholesale towels. Well, we got ChatGPT to create the towel images with people, right? In a spa setting, in a with the right colors, everything that you want. All you have to do is go tell it what you want. You might need some time to learn how much detail to give it or whatever the case is. But this goes to the other core element, which is being afraid of using the tools on the market. Either it's because of time issue, I don't have enough time for this. Or it could be a cost issue. I don't want to spend more money, whatever that might look like. At the end of the day, believe me, you're going to have missed opportunities, and it will in fact cost you more in the long run if you don't invest your time or invest some budget. There's no version of a zero budget. I'm sorry, it's just doesn't work.
Yes.
Anyway, those are two scenarios.
No, I think that's so important. I actually was using Perplexity because I'm my SharePoint is like way over spaced. If you guys use Microsoft, you can understand that. Anyway, so I needed to archive a bunch of things, and I'm like, okay, how can I bulk archive anything that's older than like 2021, right? And I wanted to do that because I backed up my whole SharePoint onto a backup drive and stuff like that. So I'll still be able to access it, but I want to get rid of the stuff. And I'm like, I have no idea how to do that. Can I do it? And it's like, yes, you can. Here are 3 different ways you can do it step by step. I'm like, fantastic.
I know.
And I'm like, one of them involved buying something and, the rest were just using built-in Microsoft tools. And I'm like, sign me up. I'll let you know how it goes because I haven't found the time to actually do that step. At least I know what I need to do. I have done the backup though. But yeah, I mean, it's just so amazing how much we can do and how much knowledge we have access to that will allow us to understand step by step.
And the variety that's associated with that knowledge is crazy. Pick a subject, pick a topic. It doesn't make a difference.
Any subject, any topic, it's crazy. And again, it's not perfect out the gate. I was writing some social posts for a client yesterday, and when I'm writing these posts, I was like, is this true? And so I go and it had a source and it was a real website. And I went to the website and I read it and I'm like, I I don't know about this source. Well, interestingly enough, it wasn't exactly true. They had that site had actually twisted the truth a little bit so that it wasn't 100% accurate. So definitely be checking it and trying it out before you just assume it's all right, which I always think is important. So yeah. But I thought that was interesting because I was like, I don't know about this site being 100% reliable.
You can get AI to verify the information. You can ask it how accurate is this, or is this accurate? Just be very blunt about it, and let it come back with parts of it where it will say, "Yep, this is right and this is wrong."
Perplexity gives me a chart at the end and goes line by line and says true, and sometimes it says sort of. It says true, false, or sort of. And then it says why it's sort of true, which I think is always so interesting. But that's so much fun. Yeah, I love it. You've got to adapt, you've got to adjust, and you've got to be aware of what's going on in today's market. This has been an amazing conversation, I think, with some really strong takeaways for anybody watching and listening about how you can improve your online presence. And I think that's a big piece of who we are, right? Back in the 90s, you needed a website to be real. Then you needed social media to be real. Well, now you need to be found in AI to be real, right? So it just keeps growing and being different. And there's just so much opportunity out there. This has been fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. Before I let you go, though, I have to ask you the question that I ask all of my guests. And that is, this show is called Imperfect Marketing because marketing is anything but a perfect science, as we both know. What has been your biggest marketing lesson learned along the way?
The marketing lesson, I would say it is keeping up, especially in our industry. There's no question. You got to keep up with what's going on. I have the ability of being an industry author and a guest speaker, which forces me, whether I like it or not, to always stay on top of what's going on. But that's the thing. You said marketing is not a perfect thing. And I agree with that too, because ultimately marketing is about finding a starting point, not an end point. There is no end point to marketing. You find a starting point, and based on the results, you go back through and you change things, right? So if you think of marketing being a cycle, you have a cycle of a strategy, you have activities, those activities have tasks, and you have to understand how to measure those things. And usually whatever we have is already being measured. So now with the AI tools, you take the measurements, you dump it into ChatGPT and say, tell me what this all means, right? And take it one step further and say, how do I correct? What are some steps I can do to improve on these results? Because you're not correcting anything. That's the other thing. You're improving on it, right? You found a starting point. You, based on the results, you make changes to improve the results, and you keep doing this every 30, 45, 60 days. And it just keeps running and running and running. So I think that that's an important part, along with being able to say, yes, what's new on the market? Let's take a look at that. And if you want to know what's new on the market, go to AI, ask it, what are the new tools on the market? Again, like we said earlier, don't be afraid to go ask.
That's very cool. I love that marketing is a starting point, not an end point. It is never done. That's why our to-do lists are forever. And as a marketer, I love AI because it helps me get through more of that to-do list than I ever did before. Notice I didn't say all of the to-do list because I don't think we will ever be through all of the to-do list
There's no
ever.
version of that.
No.
I agree.
Never, never, never. So again, thank you so much, Melih, for meeting with me and having this conversation. I really appreciate your time. Well,
It was
ways to
great being on the show, Kendra.
ways to connect with you in the show notes. So, or the description if you're watching on YouTube. So be sure to go ahead and jump on down there and connect with Melih to learn more. And if you're looking to connect with him for his services, again, feel free to do that too. Thank you again so much for tuning in to another episode of Imperfect Marketing. If you learned something today, it would really help us if you would rate or subscribe wherever you're listening or watching. Thanks so much and have a great rest of your day.